would crash a plane. Well, how big a plane? That part is a little dramatic.
Hi, Himesh.
Hi.
Hey there. Hello. So let's go ahead and get started. What can you tell us about your character in Tenet? I've seen the film, but just as a baseline for our audience.
Yeah, I guess it's difficult to say too much without giving anything away, but the story centers on John David Washington's character as he navigates this thrilling sort of conspiracy mystery that he's kind of thrown into. And along the way, he has to do a couple of slightly difficult things, and he needs a bit of help. And that's where my character comes in.
So one of the things I noticed about him is that he has a bit of a mid-Atlantic American accent, and I'm kind of curious: is that something that you brought to the table? Was that something that was Chris's idea at the origin point, and the work to get there? Did you work with a dialect coach to develop that?
Yeah. So actually, Chris was kind of open about the character and who he could be, and we spoke about it a few days before actually my first day, because by the time I got into it, they'd already started shooting, so we didn't have much time to kind of rehearse or anything like that. But me and Chris had a cup of tea and we had a chat, and I kind of said maybe he could be American, and Chris was like, yeah, great. And so I was like, great. I hadn't worked with a dialect coach on it, and I didn't for the film, but it was something that I kind of, as a British actor, it's something that you kind of practice a bit if you have ideas that you might want to do jobs in the US at some point. So it was kind of there in my back pocket, and I'd been keen to give it a go. It's just strange to me that I kind of gave it a go in a Christopher Nolan movie.
Speaking of Chris, how would you compare as an actor working with him to working with someone like Danny Boyle?
They're very different in a lot of ways, but they're also, the thing they have in common is that they have a clear vision, and that they know how best to equip themselves with the best people around them to help them realize that vision. They both know that they can't do it alone, and that's something that I think is the mark of a great director, when they can obviously be great leaders and be very clear about their vision, but also be very respectful of the people that they're working with and their expertise in order to get them to where they need to be. And obviously the scales of filmmaking are quite different as well. I know Danny likes to work with kind of smaller budgets, but he still creates that kind of cinematic energy with what he does with the camera. And Chris obviously works on a completely different scale in terms of budget and kind of epic storytelling. Mm-hmm. But there's still an integrity to the filmmaking that he maintains. They're both really great storytellers.
Do you find that they have different approaches?
I think so, yeah. I mean, the thing is, I worked with them both at different levels, I suppose. With Danny, I was lucky enough to be the lead in the movie, so we spent a lot of time, about 3 or 4 months really pre-production. Obviously, I was practicing the songs for Yesterday, and there was a long period. Whereas I say with this, I was so busy actually on the press tour for Yesterday that as soon as that came to an end, that's when I came and met Chris, and they were already during production. So we spoke a bit about who the character was and that sort of thing. But obviously the characters are important to Chris as well. That's why we took the time to kind of go, okay, who is this guy? There are a lot of directors who I imagine that they'd probably be like, don't worry about it, we'll just figure it out on day one, just get there and we'll sort it out. Whereas obviously it was important to Chris that we were on the same page about that sort of thing.
Of course. In terms of the actual secrecy behind the script, obviously Chris is well known for sort of an enigmatic approach. And I'm kind of curious, when you received the script, were there any sort of barriers or loop or security guardrails that you had to maintain when you had it in your possession?
I actually never had it in my possession for an extended period of time. The whole thing, So they were shooting in Tallinn at the time, and so I went and I was sat in a trailer, and I was given the script in an envelope. I had to sign it like a document, just promising that I wouldn't, take any pictures and post them online. I was kind of thinking, well, why would I do that? That's awful. But they had to obviously make sure. And so then I read the whole thing, and then I got to keep my scenes. So I had to hand the whole kind of the Bible. I had to hand that one back. But it was all there. You know, it took one sitting, and it was all just there in my head. I think that's the talent of a writer like Chris. You know, obviously we know about his direction, but it was so interesting reading his script and how he makes it leap off the page. You know, these are kind of heady concepts, but he manages to make them thrilling even on a page.
The experience from shooting the film to actually watching it as a finished product, like how does that experience sort of morph in front of you?
It was really interesting actually, because it was the first time that I guess I'd done that with one of Chris's movies. So I was on one hand excited, obviously, to see it because I'm a fan of Chris's previous work, and having read the script, I was like, wow, there's so much stuff. I wonder what it's going to look like. But I was still a bit like, I guess it won't be quite as exciting as the other ones because I kind of know what's coming. But it was just as thrilling, if maybe more thrilling, because I was like eager to see the stuff that I'd read and how it was going to be played out on screen. And obviously it didn't disappoint. I mean, it looks amazing. There's stuff that just made my jaw hit the floor because it defied my expectations about how incredible and original it looked.
The other sort of question I had was really centered on the major set piece that you play a pivotal role in, which if you've seen the trailer, you know that there's a plane that is crashed into an airport. And I'm curious from your perspective, how long did that scene take to shoot? And I'd love to just get like a firsthand account of sort of the creation of that scene. I mean, I'm sure you weren't there when the plane was crashed, but I am curious about what you were involved in beyond just what we saw in front of the camera.
It's really strange that you've got that picture behind you as well.
Yeah.
Was that planned or
no? That's Mahir poster.
Yeah, it was a thrilling sequence to be a part of, obviously, and in true, you know, tradition, the way that Chris likes to make his movies, that's a real plane. That's an actual 747 that had been decommissioned, I think, and it would have just gone to the scrapyard, but they bought it instead and did the job for them. And yeah, I was actually involved in every little bit of it, really. And it took a couple of weeks or so to get it all done. It was a long sequence, that Freeport sequence. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of different bits going on. So it took a while, but obviously that stunt was big news. And what was amazing to me really was just how well organized it was. Chris has surrounded himself over the years with the best stunt team in the business. They know exactly what to do. Even obviously in this movie, there's stuff that the stunt team were doing that they'd never done before. And they rose to the challenge. And this sequence was the same sort of thing. It was amazing, all the practical kind of side of doing things and how much I got to be involved in it as well. I thought, they'll use a stunt guy for that. They'll use a stunt guy for that. And obviously they did for when, they needed to, but a lot less than I thought. So it was really, really thrilling. And it's great to say that I've kind of done something like that now.
So the last question for me, you're about to pivot from one genius filmmaker in Christopher Nolan over to Hiro Murai, who I am a humongous fan of. And I'm kind of curious what you can share about Station 11. It's a book that's been on my reading list for quite some time. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about that production.
Yeah, I mean, it's early days, so we're really, and obviously with the pandemic that happened, it's kind of stopped us in our tracks a little bit. So I'm waiting to hear on how we might restart production. But we shot the pilot with Hiro. He's such an amazing director. I think he's been so influential on pop culture, obviously, over the last few years. But the way he tells stories, I think, is so unique. And it was a real pleasure to work with him. He's a really, really lovely guy. But Patrick Somerville is our showrunner, and he's written some really brilliant scripts that are a fantastic adaptation of the book. So yeah, I'm excited to get back to work, and hopefully eventually it'll see the light of day.
Yeah, can't wait to see it. Thanks so much for the time, Himesh.
Thank you. Thanks.